Welcome to the Good Success Podcast, where we encourage and challenge purpose-driven entrepreneurs to create, build, and maintain profitable businesses so they can have more to give more. Our motto is to be a conduit, not a bucket. Work to have to give. We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Good Success Podcast. I am your host, Tom Olson, and I have got a special guest today, Joseph DiSanto, who right now is kind of living one of these kind of maybe half retired, half working. If you guys know me and you listen to the Good Success Podcast, you know I don't really believe in retirement. I believe in financial freedom. I believe in financial independence, but I always feel like you ought to be working to have to give. And sometimes the smartest people in the world are some of the are elderly, and there's a reason why they're still here on this earth, and they ought to be sharing that knowledge and helping other people, not just kind of sitting on a beach sipping a margarita. So I'm really excited to have Joseph on here, who actually has a program to be able to help other people reach financial freedom. And like I said, I am super passionate about financial freedom. I love it. He's also going to talk a little bit about turning your home into a market-beating investment. I think it's a really cool concept. We talked a little bit about that before the podcast, and he agrees with me 100% that your home is and can be an asset, and it's not just a liability. It can be a liability for a certain period of time if you're looking at just black and white numbers, but if you really understand what's going on, it can really help you in the long run. I actually think it's one of the keys to financial freedom is buying houses when you're younger and just either flipping them over every couple of years, or even, I mean, for me, I still own several of the houses I used to live in as either rentals or corporate rentals. So how you doing today, Joseph?
I'm doing great, Tom. Thanks for having me on, man.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast and taking some time to be able to invest in our community. Where are you at right now?
I live in Dunedin, Florida right now. I've lived here for a couple of years now. Previous to this, my wife and I lived in Los Angeles for about 20 years, which that was the majority of my previous career. We kind of left that behind to change it up, and now I'm doing what I'm doing now, which I can get into.
So where is that at again?
Dunedin's like, I call it a coastal suburb of Tampa. So Tampa, Florida is like a little inland because it's on the bay. But if you go 20 minutes like straight west, you hit the Gulf, you're in Dunedin. So we're a little small town vibe right on the Gulf. It's actually an awesome community, actually.
Yeah, I like that inside Gulf. I like that. All the inside Gulf, all the way up to Pensacola, all those beaches are really nice and quiet. And it is really a great place to live. Me and my wife are actually, we own a couple lots already a little bit south of you. And then we also in Cape Coral. Okay. And then we also are looking at Pensacola right now, or maybe even Destin. I think we'll probably end up closer to Pensacola. But
where are you now? Where do you live now?
We're right outside Chicago in Northwest Indiana. And so that's where we're at. So, and actually I like it. I like having the 4 seasons, but I just hate January, February, and March. So like, if I could just get rid of January, February, March, and for me, that's kind of what we're thinking about doing.
Well, I'll tell you what, right now, you'd be surprised how chilly it gets in Florida. And one morning last week, we woke up and it was 39 degrees. So we're actually having almost like 2 seasons this year. It's about 55 right now. So we're having like a cozy Christmas time. Yeah, actually December, January, it gets pretty chilly, but it'll be weird. Like one day it'll be 75 again. But it'll get pretty chilly, and it'll stay consistently chilly, from mid-Florida north. As you go further south, that doesn't happen as much. But,
I see. So, I mean, at least you're not probably – I did actually hear that. I had another person on my podcast that was in Jacksonville, Florida, and it was 39. I think it was probably that day that you referenced there. But that is interesting. You probably don't get as cold as we get. You don't get negative 60 degree with the wind chill, and you don't get the slush and all the nasty snow that we get. I actually like snow, but I just don't like it when it turns into
I'm from Providence, Rhode Island, so I grew up with the 4 seasons and the snow. beautiful fall actually in New England. So I'm familiar with it, but I don't think we even in Rhode Island get down into the negative 30s and 40s. That's some serious Chicago Midwest stuff right
Yeah,
there.
it's not really that degrees. We rarely ever get below -5, which we're not like Minnesota where they really do get to those -30s. But it's just the wind chill will make it
Yeah.
feel that
Right.
cold. So,
And by the way, my wife's from Grand Rapids, Michigan, so she's actually from around that neck of the woods. So. But we both did like LA for the weather. LA is pretty great. Southern California is pretty great on the weather front, I have to admit. But I like Florida too. It's been nice.
yes, absolutely. So before we get started, you guys know I always like to kind of give a little bit of thought or something I've been thinking about. And we are coming up on our sales and marketing boot camp here at the Good Success Mastermind, which is going to be held March 31st through April 2nd. And I kind of think right now, what we're looking at is a lot of businesses have kind of slipped back through coronavirus. Yes, there's been some of the anomalies, the Amazons of the world that have probably expanded or doubled in size, and even Walmart earnings are probably going to be through the roof. But a lot of the people that are listening to this podcast are small business owners, and a lot of us this year has been kind of tough. We've probably had some surprises, and for us, we've had some surprises in the good for us. We've had some surprises in the bad for us, with the different companies that we have. So I kind of get to see it from many different angles with our 7 businesses. But I kind of feel like 2021 should be the year that we get back to the basics, and we get back to, and one of those things that is in every business that you have to have a strong system in is sales. And so today I just wanted to kind of like reach out to everybody and tell you that, there's this real big misconception out there that sales is just a numbers game. And I just don't believe that at all. Sales is not a numbers game. And honestly, I believe that the only people that say sales is a numbers game is, number one, marketers, which that would make sense because marketers should be thinking about the numbers game behind it. But a salesperson, there's only 2 ways to be able to increase sales. Okay. First of all, is increase the number of people you talk to. And that would be kind of the sales as a numbers game, right? But the problem is if you have to increase the number of people you have to talk to, you have to spend more money. You have to get in front of more people. And a lot of times you have to hire more salespeople. So it just is more cost. And it doesn't necessarily even mean that you're going to make more sales. The second way to increase sales is to increase your conversions. And if you think about it, if you have to make a choice between one of those 2, if you just increase conversions, you don't have to talk to more people. You don't have to spend more money, and you don't have to hire more salespeople. So, salespeople convert prospects into clients. And I'm not talking about, being pushy. I'm not talking about, ramming a product down somebody's throat that doesn't really need the product, but being a compassionate salesperson that really cares about what the other person is going through and tries to make a good fit. And just a good salesperson is just a good connector, a good person that listens to what other people's needs are and says, hey, either I have the solution for you or I know somebody else that might have the solution for you. So just remember, sales is not a numbers game. And again, if you're a salesperson, you say that, I think it's just an excuse as to why you're not hitting your numbers. But sales is a game of systematically converting prospects into clients. It's something that can be repeated. It's something that can be duplicated over and over and over again. If you're interested in learning more about sales, that's what we're going to focus more on in this sales and marketing bootcamp coming up March 31st through April 2nd. If you guys are interested in that, you guys can email junior@sales@goodsuccess.com, or you can just look at us up at the Good Success Podcast. So back to Joe. I really appreciate you spending some time and being with us. I'm really interested to hear, from your experiences from moving from Rhode Island, sounds like, to LA to Florida. It seems like you've had many different houses. I'm really interested in talking about how you're helping people now reach financial freedom and you're also like, I love the concept of turning your home into a market beating investment vehicle. But why don't you just tell the audience who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing that for?
All right. I'll give you my scoop. Well, right now, as you mentioned, I kind of consider myself a little bit semi-retired, and it's not in that as you were mentioning, retired in that I don't want to work, or I don't work because I really like working. Um, the reason I say that is because I'm able to work part-time now, and I'm also not as concerned with putting more money away for savings. I feel like, we've amassed enough money. If that money is untouched and keeps growing, and I can just work enough to pay my regular expenses, I'm good with that. Like, that works for our lifestyle and where we want to be, 20 or 30 years from now. So that's why I consider myself sort of semi-retired. I'm not
Right.
actively saving anymore.
Yep.
But and while I could make a case for not working, like you're saying, not working is not that much fun, to be honest with you. I mean,
Eventually,
I guess I'm a
you have to
busybody,
do
but
something.
yeah, but I like to put my mind to work to building something, creating a project, strategizing, planning, seeing something through. My wife likes to do the same. So when we left our previous life, what I wanted to do was essentially start a website where I could do education. I'll go to the beginning a little bit, and we'll come back to this. But I am from Rhode Island originally. Went to school in Massachusetts, and then I headed to New York actually after that for the first couple of years of my career. And I was an art major, but I was always interested in personal finance and in business and in numbers. I've always just generally thought it was a good idea, I guess, to keep track of my personal finances. So I started doing that in college. Right? Yeah, and in a way, just learning Quicken and using Quicken for my personal finances, even when I was just in debt, I learned a lot about good bookkeeping and running the business of me. I call it running the business of you. That's what I recommend to everybody. You got to run your personal life like a business. You need to make more than you spend. You need to figure out how to make better forms of income, all those sort of things. And I also knew I wanted to start a business, so I was lucky enough to find an industry that really merged together my art interest and my business interest, and could operate as a small business, and it was called post-production. And what post-production is, in the media creation world, whether you're making a movie or a television show or a television commercial, or now just online media, music videos, whatever. First, you do production. You go out with the camera and you shoot the material and you get it in the can, as they say. And then that material goes to the post-production company. And there they do editing, we do visual effects work, we do color correction, we do audio editing, sound design, audio mastering, video mastering, and essentially take the raw material and turn it into a delivered product that goes to the network or the advertiser or whatever. So it's a perfect balance of art and science, and art and sort of technical stuff. So I luckily was able to find that industry, and it worked for me. And I just kept kind of working my way up with the idea I was going to start a company someday. My goal was to do it by the time I was 30. And I met that goal I missed it by 2 months. I was 30 years old in 2 months when we opened the doors. But and I did that back in 2006, before kind of you could do so much online in terms of business. Like, we actually needed to get a physical location and buy equipment and furniture and, do a little build out. And, so it was a challenge.
That was back when those cameras were huge.
Yeah. I mean, they were still shooting film even back then. Yeah. And we would deliver on like a tape, like a physical tape. Now it's just digital. But anyway, got that going. It worked out well, luckily. I had really great partners who I'm still good friends with. And we had a really good run with that company. It's still in existence, but I was the CEO of it for about 14 years. And along the way, we started other businesses that, we did what I like to call piggybacking, whereas we look at what we're doing and what we've invested in and what our infrastructure in, and we're like, what else can we do that will take advantage of these investments we have already made? And fill in any gap, any capacity that we're not utilizing, can we fill it in with other lines of revenue? So we set out to do some production, and we ended up producing a couple feature documentaries, and which led into us eventually producing a docuseries for HBO called Sonic Highways. We co-produced with Dave Grohl. So that line of work really worked out and added a whole nother dimension to our business. But also, like with like with buying your own home or buying your residence, I like to say, we can get into that. I think you should be doing the same thing with your business. You're putting out a lot of money every month in rent. Well, you need to convert that expense, that true, just strict expense, convert that into an investment. And I think you do that when you purchase your residence, and you do that when you purchase the building or the office space that your business is in. So
you don't have to tell me that. I actually have 3 acres here at this office where I'm at. And, I am collecting, before we're on this podcast, we talked about the 1 times multiple that most turnkey people get. Like, I'm getting 4 times what I actually paid for. I'm getting a 4 time because I have storage on here. I've got warehouse on here. Actually, it's a completely mixed use. I have a guy who's lived here for over 15 years. And that was my concept going into this. I'm like, I don't want to just buy a building and just house my staff and it's just an expense. I actually wanted something that at least paid for itself.
Right.
But I wanted to actually be an investment as well. I'm like, why not? Like, this is what we do for a living anyways. This is how we help other people build their portfolios. This is why I help people in our mastermind. So what better way to be able to be a good example and to do it with your own building? And we even have a conference center here where we actually even hold our masterminds as well. So
awesome.
I 100% agree with you. And you kind of mentioned that it never, like when you were talking about the different things in this different ways to be able to monetize a business, sometimes those ancillary sales turn into things that you have no idea could have turned into, like you talked about with your HBO project. So
yeah,
I think when it comes to business, that's something to really pay attention to. What are these things that we can add, and I mean, maybe in your yearly meetings or your quarterly meetings, when you're kind of reviewing how you happened last quarter or how you did last year. And when you're planning your future year and your future quarters, ask yourself those questions. What are those ancillary things? What things do we have that we already own that we're not utilizing to our fullest? I think that's awesome.
Absolutely. I mean, it's, in business and in life, I say you really do have to have a lot of irons in the fire. You can't really just focus on one path. You have to have a lot of parallel paths going on, and you have to branch out, and you have to be thinking about different ways to improve your situation all the time. So that's how we would do it in business. But, in life, you should be doing the same things, whether that's investing in real estate or other kinds of investments while you're working and so on. Mm-hmm. But it sounds like you've done a tremendous job with the real estate your business is utilizing. I envy you. I wish I could have done it as well, but we did pretty good. But what we ended up doing, in just not just buying the building, but we really looked for an opportunity where we could add a lot of value and we could develop something. I mean, as you know, doing real estate, you make a lot of money in real estate when you find, untapped value in a property. Mm-hmm. And you convert it and you create that value, whether that be through a redevelopment, more square footage, whatever it may be. So we took these raw kind of warehouse spaces. We did this twice, actually. We did it, sequentially. Our first building, we took this raw warehouse space and we just completely redeveloped it to be creative office space. And that's really hard to do in Los Angeles. I mean, you're dealing with a pretty significant development process. You're dealing with a very large city that it's hard to navigate through. Like, I was educating myself on this whole new kind of arena as I was taking it on. And I just, basically gave myself a great education. We ended up with a great space. And 8 years later, we sold it. We took half our winnings. The other half we put into a new, better, bigger building. And I did the process again. And that project was like a $10 million project. But we ended up taking another raw space. We took it from like 8,500 square feet to about 12,750. And in Los Angeles, when real estate's, running 850, 900 a foot, you're creating a lot of value there.
Yeah.
I mean, it took a year plus, and I was able to focus on that full time. So there was nothing like passive about it per se. Mm-mm. But we wouldn't have been able to do that kind of thing without putting to work the money that our business was already putting out for rent and so on. So it's like, you have to look where you can capitalize on what you're already doing everywhere. and just keep squeezing more and more value out of the money you're making, essentially.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, because I think that's kind of along your same stories with your own personal house, right? You've already kind of made some connections between personal income and business income, and how they really work together. I mean, a lot of people that are listening to this podcast have heard of QuickBooks, but how many people have actually heard of Quicken? And now, honestly, I'll be honest with you, I don't use Quicken. I do have a lot of supplemental spreadsheets, and the same bookkeeper who runs all of my businesses also kind of helps me with my personal finances as well. So I do have some of that going for me. But like having a system that to run your personal finances and having a budget and having all those things that you actually track and go back and look at, is so important. We teach it in business, but sometimes if we don't do it personally, our personal, blunders will kind of, go into business, and you don't want that to happen. You want both of them to be running smoothly. So talking about this from the personal aspect, how can you turn your home into a market beating investment vehicle?
Okay. So, as I was saying, after leaving Los Angeles, we left because I wanted to work less and have more time for my family, because I did work a lot there, and did my wife. So we had a nanny, and we were like, we really want to be able to spend time with our son while he's young. So we changed up our lives so we could do that. And now what I'm doing is, I'm doing my website, and I'm basically helping people as a coach or a business manager to navigate their personal finances, to commandeer everything you just talked about using Quicken or QuickBooks or whatever, running a tight financial ship, and then creating a plan for them to reach retirement, or what's more what is called in the modern age financial independence. We talk a lot about financial independence. I think they used to just call that retirement, but now it's financial independence. So and being that I'm kind of in this educational coaching role, I do work with young people, and I would end up in this debate of like, should I buy a house or should I rent? I read that sometimes you're better off renting because, there's so many hidden expenses in owning a house. And Robert Kiyosaki, I read his book, and he said that your house is your biggest expense. It's not your biggest asset. And I just started to get very troubled by this. I was like, the idea that people would be, being told by people that, are credible to not buy a house is crazy to me. And so I was like, I'm going to do the numbers on this, because I like to do the numbers on things. And, I mapped out this whole spreadsheet, which you can actually get on my website, where I look at what you might be paying in rent right now, and what your house price might be, and like, factor in all the extra expenses. And then I even factored in, what if you took all that extra money and you invested it in the market and you got 8% return, blah, 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 blah. Like, where would you net out 30 years later? Mm-hmm. And, long short, the numbers compellingly were for owning a house. But the reason I think owning your own residence can be so, can be great is it comes just like any rental. Well, I guess I should say this, like, think of it this way. Like, if you didn't own your house, you would still be having to live somewhere. You'd be paying rent, right? So your house is not your biggest expense. What your biggest expense is the cost to have housing. And you're going to have that anyway, slice it. So just imagine you're the renter. You just happen to also be the owner of the house that you're renting. And when you look at it like that, it's really not any different than any other rental property. Like, there's nothing greater than to have the perfect tenant yourself be your tenant of your rental property. They're never really going to complain to you. They're always going to pay their rent on time. You don't need a property manager. You have all these great things going for you, being your own renter, right? But where homes beat regular rental properties is that because it's your residence, you get so many extra tax breaks. And in particular, you get no capital gains tax on up to $500,000 of profit if you are a married couple. That is like $125,000 on average gift from the federal government that you would not be getting if it was just a regular rental. And you could say, well, you could do a 1031 with a regular rental, and you can, But eventually that tax savings does follow you down all your 1031 chains and will eventually materialize unless you do some good trust and asset transfer stuff with your kin. But so I always have to encourage people, like, you really need to own your own home, but it's hard to do at the beginning. And I think you want to do it as early as possible in your life. So the best thing to do to make your home a market beating investment is to buy a multifamily as your first house. That's commonly called house hacking. You get all the benefit of the rental income for qualifying for the loan. You likely would, your overhead or, quote unquote rent would be probably very low, but then you also get the tax breaks as if it's just your primary residence. So that's a great way to start, and having the rental income will get you in earlier. But if you want to go the single family route and say you're more adventurous, you could actually do what I call the live and flip, which is you buy properties that have potential. They have to be properties that can be fixed up and maybe you can add more square footage. You have to look for the value you can create, just like you would in any real estate investment. But if you live there for the last 5 years, you can sell it, you can take the capital gains tax-free, and then you can go do that again. So if that's the more adventurous way to go if you want to be like sort of a real estate nomad. Even I'm not up for that. I kind of like, to be in one place. But if you're just going to buy your own single family house and be there for a while, you should always look for something that you can create value in, just like any other real estate investment. And it's funny, I started to really kind of this crystallized for me when we bought the building for our business. When you buy a commercial property, the delineation is very clear that your business is the tenant and you are the owner of the real estate, because the real estate goes in an LLC and it has its own sort of encapsulated, financial profile. It's got income, it's got expense, and the income is the rent that your business gives it. But they make this distinction, this distinction is very clear when you buy commercial, but for some reason when you're buying your own house, I don't know, people just all of a sudden think like it's just some big expense. It's not, it's performing just like any rental real estate. At the end of the day, you can do an internal rate of return on your house based on the equivalent rent you would be paying to live in a similar house that you didn't own. And the numbers, especially with the tax break, will always come out, very likely come out very favorable and be a market beating investment for the down payment. And then you add to the fact that if it's your first house, you can get in for as low as 3.5% down. I mean, that's a dream for investment real estate that everyone's trying to do, but you can very rarely do unless you're like working with an investor's money. If you're going to work with your own money, you're likely going to have to be in for at least 20% to get a loan on rental property. But on the residence, you can get in for 3.5% down, which means your internal rate of return on that small investment is going to be even greater, on the invested funds.
Yeah, it's really amazing. Two people that I've heard talk about this quite often is, you already mentioned Robert Kiyosaki, who says that your house that you live in is not an asset, it's actually a liability, but he's only looking at it from a month to month basis. He's not really looking at it from the long term or what's really going to be. And that's how an investment should be. An investment isn't about month over month. It's about what does it look like when it's all said and done, or what does it look like in the long haul? Because that's how investors should be thinking, not just like, how am I going to make this next money for next week or next month? You call those traders. You don't call those investors. You call those traders. So
I also feel that in some ways in reading the book, because I actually went back, I read that book when I was young and I like it. I actually love the Rich Dad series. The books on tax-free wealth is amazing. Loopholes of real estate is amazing. I think also what he was saying, though, is when it comes to your personal residence, people tend to overdo it. They buy more than they should. They over-renovate more than they should. Because it's their house, they're always buying this or that or the other for it. They're not being frugal with their money. Like, they're not treating it like an investment, and I do think there is a distinction there. I think you really don't over renovate your house, and put materials in it that the neighborhood, on a resale can't support just because that's what you want. You know what I mean? It's like, you got to think about what you're doing and think about it as eventually going to be something you sell, or you're going to turn into a rental on its own, like a real rental, because maybe you're going to move on to a bigger house or a better house or whatever. So it's like, you want to stick to a good investment profile.
I 100% agree with that. But the other person I heard talk about this is Grant Cardone. He literally says, you're buying it. And I actually like Grant. I love a lot of the things that he said, just like you're talking about with Robert Kiyosaki. But like, he literally goes on and on and on about how renting is so much better and how you don't have to have all these other expenses. But what's hilarious is at the same time he's saying that, he's building this massive rental portfolio, and he's literally basically telling his future customers to rent from him. So you have to really—
I watched that video. I mean, it really was disheartening. And actually one of the call-ins said he was trying to keep people down by giving that advice. But he does this just super shoddy, like, whiteboard math. I mean, he doesn't even complete the math. He sort of like starts the math and like just doesn't even end up finishing it. And he's talking about how the banks all make out and you don't make out. And you're like, what rental property, are you going to go buy without a bank? I mean, banks always make out. Sure. That doesn't mean you can't make money with it. I was really kind of angry about when I watched that video. I'm like, people listen to you, and the truth of the matter is, everyone wants to buy real estate and be a real estate investor and, be this, that, and the other, and be, the truth of the matter is, like, most people, like, the most attainable real estate investment they have out of the gate is their home, because they're going to be paying for rent anyway. They can get in with a lower down payment, and they can get more favorable financing terms as an owner occupant. So it's like, why you would discourage someone from taking advantage of all those benefits, I have no idea, especially if you think investing in real estate is a good idea. I mean, if you don't think real estate's a good idea at all, then I could see you making that case. But
right. I honestly, personally believe that owning your own home and owning several of your own homes, this isn't just like you buy a house when you're 20 and then you just live in that house for the rest of your life. I believe that owning your own homes, and for us, like I have actually owned 5 of the houses that I have lived in all at once, and I've actually sold 2 of them since then. And right now I own 3 of the houses that we have lived in the past. But that was only because of market. The market took over, and I'm just like, okay, it's time to sell. It's great to be able to pull $100,000 out of a house that you used to own. I actually think it's one of the keys to being able to be financially free at a younger age is to be able to own your own house and to be able to move up, like you said, and to be able to take advantage of those taxes.
If I didn't buy for whatever reason, I really when I got out of college, I wanted to buy a house and I wanted to start a business. Those were the things that were on my mind. And being in Los Angeles, houses are expensive, so it made it harder to get into a house. And even in 2004, it was a feverish market. I mean, people were, lining up. It was so many offers, this, that, and the other. But I managed to do it by 28. The house was $460,000. And if I hadn't bought that house, I got lucky in the sense that, like everyone else who got lucky, the market from 2004 to 2008 exploded. I ended up with a bunch of equity in that house that I was able to tap, partly due to the loose lending standards of the time as well. But that equity is what I used to start the business. So if I hadn't bought that house and I hadn't been lucky enough to be in on experiencing that equity growth, I wouldn't have had the cash to buy the business. So like just owning assets and owning real estate and being in the game, maybe it doesn't always go up. Sometimes it does go down, but I think it's much more stable than the stock market or something like that. But, I always say luck is merely preparation meeting opportunity, right? So like, yeah, you could say you got lucky, the market went up, and it's like, well, yeah, but I worked really hard to make sure I own that house. You know what I mean? And if I didn't own that house, I wouldn't have had a couple $100,000 of equity to tap. Now, cut to a year later, the house was worth half the value, but I already had the money out. I was underwater on the house for like 5 years. It finally made its way back up. I sold it at a large profit, used those proceeds to move into a bigger house in a better neighborhood with better schools. And then we decided to leave LA. That house was part of another big real estate boom, that's kind of still happening. And, it was all because I bought that first house. You know, it opened up a lot of opportunities that just otherwise, you know, wouldn't have been there for me if I didn't own it. So I really put a lot of stock in that first house I bought. And, you know, for older listeners that own homes, I know this conversation is somewhat irrelevant, but if you have kids, I mean, or you are younger, you know, I have clients that do well in business right now, but they don't own houses and they're in their early 30s. And I'm like, guys, you gotta buy a house. Like, what are you doing? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So we're working on it together, but you know, you'd be surprised. I'm always surprised that even like we were talking about earlier, the most successful people that make a lot of money, they're not commandeering their finances. They're not getting the most out of the money they're making. They're not financially organized. They couldn't tell you how much they spent last month, period, never mind on, you know, eating out. You know what I mean? It's like being successful and being smart doesn't necessarily mean you're in control of your finances.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit more about that. So you talked about some of the people that you're working with now. I think you have some kind of a program or you have some kind of exciting thing that you're doing right now to be able to help other people. Maybe it's just from a coaching standpoint, from personal and business, you know, finances and kind of just helping people that way. Just tell us a little bit about your program.
Yeah. So, well, like I was saying, I do, you know, what I'm doing now for kind of my living is I'm a business manager. I call it business manager for the businesses I work with and a coach for the individuals. I don't know why, but it's basically the same thing, helping people commandeer their finances and get on a good path towards financial independence. Now, those people kind of pay me on a monthly basis, but for people who don't have that expense or want to kind of do it themselves, I just created this course called the Financial Independence Roadmap. And it basically just walks you through how to do like a long-term retirement plan. And it sounds like overwhelming, but really retirement planning is not that complicated. It's actually pretty simple. You know, you think about what you want your life to look like down the road, try to rough that out, you know, put an annual number on it, and then you kind of reverse engineer a plan of how you're going to get there. So I have, you know, I've over the years for myself, I've built my little spreadsheets and models and in different ways I've figured out in a nice, simple way. And I've put together a little course with video walkthroughs, and you get my spreadsheet and I kind of tell you exactly how to do it. And it's something you look at once a year. Like, honestly, I think you can do it on a Saturday, like, you know, in once a year. And you see the plan, you kind of see how it works over time and kind of what your goal is. And then that just kind of sits in the back of your mind. So as you're working away and building your career and doing what you're doing, you know where you're going. You know, it's like the reason I call it the roadmap is because I feel like retirement's this destination, right? Mm-hmm. But most people, they're on this road trip, like, and they have a destination in mind, but they've never opened a map. You know, they don't even know like what road they're on, but they're supposedly trying to get somewhere. So they're hoping that they're just gonna drive, you know, and meander around, and eventually when they're 60, they're gonna be there. And you're like, no, you don't do that when you go on a road trip. If you want to get to Chicago from Florida, you know, you're gonna open a map. You know, like you need to map out your plan and have it in your mind. You don't need to like look at it every day, you know, but having it in the back of your mind, having seen the map and kind of having that helping you to make good decisions, I think is really critical. And the reality is it doesn't take that long to do the retirement planning. What takes more work is staying on the path, you know, like doing the weekly work of like, you know, tracking your finances, looking at for how much you're making, how much you're spending, making sure you're making more than you're spending. If you're not, like, what it also forces you to do when you look at it is it forces you to look at if you're making enough money, because that's really the hardest thing in life is to make the money, figure out how to make enough money to get you where you want to go. And once you realize, you know, hey, you know, what I'm doing right now in my work or my life, I'm not making enough money to get to my hopeful destination when I want to get there. Then you have to say, all right, well, how am I going to change up my income, you know, situation here so that I can achieve that goal? It really puts you to task. But while that sounds like a responsible and good thing to do, I think that is the very thing that discourages a lot of people from doing it. They almost don't want to know.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I feel like there's two main reasons why people don't do this. Number one, it's something that's really important, but it's not urgent. And we always like take all the time. We take all the time of all the things that we think are really important, and we focus on these like fires that we start, and we've got to put these fires out so fast because we didn't do something to plan properly for that fire. That's the first reason. And the second reason is that people literally are not humble enough to face reality and to face where they're really at right now. They've got their head in their sand, and they have no idea where they're going, like you said. And I think what's really hard sometimes is for people to actually look at even like having a simple budget, like how much money am I spending now, and how much money do I really feel like I should be spending, and then giving themselves that discipline to look at that every single week and actually see where they're at. I think, and then that discipline, I think, is the third reason why people never reach financial freedom, is because they just don't have the discipline to make it happen.
I like it in a lot too, both calorie counting and exercise, staying fit. Like calories and eating is like the exact perfect analogy for money spending and building wealth. It's like we give ourselves a lot of gimmies when it comes to calories. You're like, I didn't eat that much today. I probably put down a couple thousand calories, but really you put down like 4,700 calories. You know what I mean? Like you just give yourself too many gimmies, to use a golf analogy. And with our own personal finances, we give ourselves a lot of gimmies, so tracking it, helps unearth that. The other thing, though, also besides the income, once you kind of look at where you need to go, you do realize that investing and getting a decent return on your savings is extremely critical to getting to where you want to go. It's also extremely critical once you retire, and it's what provides you the financial independence, getting a good return on your investable capital. But
well, it also makes it so you don't need as much. I mean, because a lot of times people think they need to have like $20 million in order to retire, and you really don't. I mean, if you can live on $120,000 and you can make a 12% return, you only need $1 million, and it's not really hard to get $1 million. So
that's absolutely correct. And that's when you look at, where do I invest my money? I love real estate. I like buildings. I like architecture. It's just something I like. And I like it as a business because it's simple. Like houses are simple. It's like you got the roof, you got a heating system, you got plumbing. Like it's not super complicated. You don't have to be a genius to understand the ins and outs of it. You get rent, you have expenses, it's whatever. And I think it's more stable than the stock market. But at the end of the day, real estate is a return on invested capital. I mean, that's what it is. It's sexy and all, and there's all these gurus, and there's lots of like courses, and there's people, they always say like all the millionaires in the world did it because of real estate, and that's probably true. But at the end of the day, it's performing a function of getting you return on your savings or invested capital. There are alternatives to that, like the stock market or other alternative investments. But you have to decide, like, is real estate the way I want to go, or is stocks or something like that the way I want to go? I think I like real estate for a whole variety of reasons, which, we can do a whole show on. But it does take a little bit of extra work, but I think you get rewarded for that extra work, and you get a superior return on your savings or your investable capital. And like you said, the higher you get, if you can get that 12%, that means you don't need as much money. You can get to where you want to go sooner, and then you can remain there for longer without your capital depleting if you can get that superior return. Like, and I think I've done some math on like, my investments. And I mean, if I factor in like the compounding effect of trading from one property to another and trading up and stuff like that, I think I've basically routinely got a compound annual growth rate of about 40% on money that I started investing. And that's sort of also, when I do the math on it, I weigh how much time the money's been invested. So like I had less invested in the beginning, obviously I had more invested, kind of in the middle, and I weight that so that compound annual growth number is as legit as possible. But even if I don't do the compounding and I just basically do an average performance on the properties collectively, it's still about 18% compound annual growth.
Yeah, compound interest is one of those things that it's really hard to explain, but it is one of those things that if it's working for you, it's awesome. If it's working against you, it's horrible.
Yeah. And I just, obviously if you got into the market in 2010, you've probably beaten that right about now. But the stock market in general, as we all know, the S&P, the last 100 years on average with reinvested dividends, about 10% a year. I mean, if you're doubling that return doing real estate, then you're going to reach your goal sooner. And in my course, in my spreadsheet, I've made this little spreadsheet where you can adjust all these factors. Like, what if I got 12% return on my invested money? Where would I get to, where would I get to my goal faster? What if I only got 7%? What if I saved this much every month instead of this much? Would I get to where I want to go faster? So I try to make these little models where you can kind of plug in, the key metrics that are important, like how much you save, what kind of return do you get, how long you're going to be saving, yada, 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 and kind of make it pretty simple to use. And then it just produces this result of like 40 years of growth and kind of shows you, did you hit your target by this date and so on. But there's a bunch of videos that sort of walk you through the whole thing. And it's only, it's $200.
That's awesome. So if somebody wanted that course, or if somebody's interested in maybe even having, more of a personal coach or whatever, to try to help them personally through their life or through their businesses, how would they get a hold of you?
Just go to my website, playlouder.com. You can schedule a free 15-minute call with me to have a chat or whatever. They usually go longer because I'm a talker. It's pretty easy to navigate to find the courses there. I do have free courses too. They're kind of like the starter versions of the paid ones. So you can, dip your toe in the water for free. You'll sign up for my email list where I send like, a weekly or semi-weekly email with, good information about wealth building. And then if you do purchase the course, like there'll be an option in there to pick up like an hour of consulting at like half off. So if you want to be able to talk through some of it with me or whatever, you can have that option too. So and then, awesome. A lot of what has happened, I'm kind of at capacity for consulting and retainer work, but people just end up, they're like, hey, can I just hire you to do it? Like, I feel like doing your finances like exercising, and that some people just like to exercise and they're going to do it. Even, it's good for them, but they do it anyway. Like, I don't like to exercise. Like, I know I should, but I don't do it. I just don't do it. I think managing your money is kind of like that. Some people like it and they'll just do it because they enjoy it. And some people like that is the last thing I want to do in the weekend. It's just never going to happen. If you're one of those people, I do encourage you to pay someone to do it for you, because you will save more than you spend by being knowledgeable about where your money goes. It's super easy to save $300, $400, $500 a month, like, just on little things. And you can pay for the person that does the bookkeeping for you and then some. Some people end up just hiring me to do that, but right now I'm kind of at capacity for that. So.
Awesome. So it's just playlouder.com and you can get the course there. Like you said, it's only $200. If to me, like, if you can't spend $200 on your financial future, then I don't know. Like, I just feel like you don't value it enough, and you don't value really what it could do.
I try to make it cheap because I don't want it to be a hindrance, but I'll make a few bucks on it. I did put a bunch of time into it. So.
Awesome. Well, like I said, if you guys are interested in that, he also has a blog that he has on the playlouder.com website that he has. And then like he said, he also has some videos that he sends out to people as well. Thank you so much, Joseph, for being on today's podcast. I really appreciate your time investing in our community today. We've got 2 questions that we ask everybody that comes on the podcast. Good success means a lot to us. Good success to me is more about having the right kind of success, not just like what most people think of success, of just having another car, a boat, another vacation, another whatever. Good success is very important to us, and having a purpose on this life and trying to fulfill that purpose. When you hear good success and when you think about the right kind of success, what does that mean to you?
Well, to me, it means being able to make money and build wealth, provide for your family, and hopefully even do some giving back while also doing something you enjoy. To me, that's like, the best thing you can have. But then also to take that a little further, because now I've kind of made this next leap, is you can do well enough that eventually, if you want to change what you're doing, you will have the choice, and you will have the option to do that, because you've earned enough and you've planned well enough, and you're looking after your financial life. So having choices and having options is also good success to me.
Awesome. So being able to make enough money to be able to do something you enjoy, but also like you're doing, Joseph, now helping other people with that journey, and then also having options. I love those two definitions. That's awesome. So we've got you on the podcast. I always love to kind of just grab one more final nugget, one more final piece of wisdom from the amazing guests that we have at the Good Success Podcast. If you were to just leave the audience with just one thing, maybe it's a book, maybe it's a tip, maybe it's a piece of advice, or maybe it's a statement, a quote, whatever it is. If you wanted to get one thing out to the world, what would it be?
Well, something we've been doing lately is practicing gratitude. And it's been a really great thing. I mean, one thing I do talk about a lot with people is, life's long and there's lots of ups and downs, and you can get down a lot of the times. You're not always in great spirits. And how do you keep yourself feeling positive and motivated? And I basically took this little course from an app called Gratitude. Maybe I'll give you the link. And it was just like a simple course that kind of taught you how to practice being grateful on a regular basis to improve your mood, improve your life, and improve your relationships. And it's been awesome. Like me and my wife and my son do it together. We have a gratitude jar. And when we're having dinner, we each write down something we're grateful for the day. We put the piece of paper in the jar and we watch the jar fill up with gratitudes. And it's been really good.
I love it. Be full of gratitude and give thanks. That's why I love the Thanksgiving season that we've gone through already this year. But I think that's one thing that we practice in our family as well. If I feel like the family is kind of low, or if I feel like we're having a little bit of whining fits, or the kids are kind of being a little bit too anxious or whatever, the very first thing that my kids will tell you this, that they'll hear from me is, "Hey, what are you thankful for?" And sometimes on the way to church, or sometimes on the way, driving on a road trip, we'll just take a couple rounds in the car and just be like, "All right, what are you thankful for, Zach? What are you thankful for, Edie, Lily, Mom, Dad?" I'll do it myself as well too. And having gratitude and giving thanks is something that will change your complete perspective on the situation you're in right now, and it'll change your complete perspective on life. So I love wrapping it up.
Happiness is a practice. It's something that you have to, engage in. We're actually doing the Gratefuls now. We're into the Advent calendar for Christmas. So every night we open the little door and my son gets the chocolate and we all say grateful, light a candle. It's pretty nice.
That's awesome. Love it. Be grateful. I don't think there's any better piece of advice than that. So thank you so much again, Joseph, for spending some time investing into the Good Success community. I really appreciate having guests like this on the podcast. If you have had any ahas from today's podcast, or maybe this has been a blessing, or maybe this has given you hope, or maybe honestly, maybe you just thought maybe this is the biggest, podcast you've ever listened to, and you thought to yourself, man, I was considering renting a property, and now I'm really going to go forward and buy my first property next year. I hope you guys will share the Good Success Podcast and let other people know about how we are helping encourage, challenge, and motivate people to work, to have, to give, to have a purpose on this life, to live your life on purpose, for a purpose, and to be a conduit, not a bucket. That's going to do it for today's episode. Remember to be a conduit, not a bucket. Work to have, to give. God bless. We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Good Success Podcast, and we hope to see you on the next one. God bless.